Hey guys, Sableye VGC here, and welcome back to another team report on the channel. Today we're going to cover a Zacian Politoed team that I've been using for the last little bit. I used it twice in World Cup of Pokémon. You saw one of those matches on the channel earlier, and I know a lot of you guys were asking for the team. I am finally ready to release it after finishing top 16 in the Desafio Latam this past weekend. So here you go, you guys have the team on the screen right now. I don't normally say this at the beginning, but the paste and the rental code of the team in the description down below. So with that, I say we jump right into things. So you guys can see the team right here. Nothing too crazy. Like the core of these Pokemon, I think is pretty common, right? Zacian, Incineroar, Urjifu, Rillaboom. If you're playing this format and you haven't seen these four Pokemon, I don't think you've played enough of this format. I think this is a super common core. Nothing really too crazy, right? Zacian benefits a lot from the Incineroar and the Rillaboom being able to pivot and just position the Zacian really well. And then, of course, Urjifu tidies up this core very nicely. And along with double Fake Out and Urjifu going right through Protect, it's a pretty nice Fire Water Grass core if I do say so myself. So let's jump into the team builder right now. We're going to get to Politoed later. I just leaked the Politoed spread there, but I mean, it's in the paste anyways. So we'll get to Politoed. We'll do that one at the end since I think it's the reason most of you are here, and I'm going to make you wait because I am terribly mean. But we're going to start with the Zacian here, guys. Zacian, nothing crazy. I wanted Adamant Zacian. I was very adamant in wanting Adamant Zacian. I'm sorry for the terrible pun, but I had to say it. Nothing too crazy here. Just the Behemoth Blade Playoff Swords Dance set that's been picking up a lot in usage actually, and in my opinion is 100% the best set on Zacian right now. Sacred Sword is decent depending on what you're doing. Substitute, still a good set. I just think Swords Dance, if they're not leading Intimidate into you and you lead Zacian, because there's games you want to lead Zacian but they just have Intimidate, right? But if you can lead Zacian and they're not going to lead Intimidate, they have to waste a turn pivoting and Intimidate in, and you just click SD, right? It is phenomenal. A lot of people have also been pairing it with Amoonguss, so you get Rage Powder Swords Dance if you wanted that as well, or put things to sleep and then Swords Dance, which I think is a really cool concept as well. It is just, in my opinion, it's so good. You don't need Sacred Sword anyways. The only thing you're Sacred Swording in realistically was ever Urshifu and Incineroar, but if you have Play Rough, you hit the Urshifu anyways, and if you hit, and at +2, you're basically 99% to Incineroar. If it's the super bulky physical ones, they have a chance at living at +2, but more often than not, I'd be expecting to pick up the knockout on Incin with a +2 Play Rough. So I don't think you have a real reason for Sacred Sword, especially if you have ways to deal with people setting up on you. Like if we got Kamoa with the body press stuff, Iron Defense body press stuff, that's been picking up. Nothing else really runs it right now. I guess the odd Ferrothorn you might run into, but I have Politoed and Politoed's got Parasong for that, so I really see no reason for it. Anyways, spread is just kind of super bulky here. I actually calced it to take 3 Thunderbolts from Focus Sash Regieleki. That was the exact reason for the exact thing. But the general bulk is just so nice. My attack stat is 1 point higher, I believe, or 2 points high, 1 or 2 points higher than max attack Jolly, which is kind of what everybody calcs for. Right? If everybody's calculating for max attack Jolly, I can throw off a few spreads this way. Not quite as high as the standard Adamant spread. I think they run 156. But I like the extra bulk, and I have Swords Dance anyway, so the extra bulk is a lot more helpful than the extra little bit of attack. So the concept with this here is that I can just be super bulky and take hits, get a Swords Dance up, and just rip through everything. I don't miss any knockouts once I get the Swords Dance up. I don't miss any knockouts the other way. I'm getting knockouts still. And the general bulk is super nice. I know last weekend in the tournament, there was a spot where I was playing against the Xerneas team and they had a Volcarona. Their Volcarona Quiver Danced up and they went for a Fiery Dance and I lived on 1 HP. Now, obviously, normally it's a roll, and I fully expect the +1 Fiery Dance to be a roll into Zacians. On the standard Zacian spread, which I believe is 156-12 or somewhere around there, that's normally about a 56% if you take a standard Volcarona. So with this spread, it actually goes down to 12.5, and 12.5 is a lot better, a lot more in your favor to survive that. You can actually afford to maybe take some Fake Out chip first. The other way you probably can't. I don't know. Basically what I'm saying is I've always liked general bulk on things, and something like this, especially with the Swords Dance, and opportunities to click Swords Dance. There's so many opportunities in this format to just click SD that I didn't see a real reason to have too much attack, and I could just afford to SD back up, and just have the general bulk, which is super helpful. especially being able to potentially take an Astro Barrage, eat grassy terrain, protect, have some more grassy terrain, and potentially live another one. That's another big calc here as well. So that's that, because Calyrex by far, guys, worst matchup. Now, we're going to go to Incineroar, common Pokemon in the format. Nothing too crazy to say here. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Also, don't want to take up everybody's time by spending, I don't know, 30 minutes on a team report here. Because let's be real, you guys are here for the team, a little bit of thought process, and nothing else too much. Anyways, Flare Blitz, Throat Chop, Parting Shot, Fake Out. I do not have a lot of speed. I've always liked slow Parting Shot. My Rillaboom is the slower Rillaboom 9 times out of 10 as well. I've liked slow Parting Shot, slow U-turn all the time. It's just such a better utility in my opinion. I don't mind if my Fake Out is slower. Obviously, if I'm like a Xerneas team, right, and I need and Fake Out Geomancy or Fake Out this and Fake Out that is my game plan most of the time, then I need to be faster Fake Out, and I accept that. But on a team like this, my entire thing is just position, 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 and get to Zacian, get to the Urjifu in, right? Get to spots where I can pin people, right? And I don't think I need to be fast Fake Out for that. I think just having these slow Parting Shot to slow U-turn enables that a whole lot more, especially because 9 times out of 10, I'm just clicking those moves anyways. Fake Out's just there. I just have Fake Out pressure. I don't actually click Fake Out. But anyways, guys, standard Incineroar here. It's a bit slow, like I said, for the Throat Chop, but that is what it is. I'm okay with that. I still think it's decent. Throat Chop was just the right move. I could have gone away with like Assurance or something, but I don't think it was necessary. And Throat Chop to potentially stop Parting Shot from something is always nice. Or even a Snarl from another slower Incin. Not too many Incins are going to be slower than this, though. But the old school careful spread, just eating Xerneas attacks. And with Xerneas, you like to say, like with Zacian, right? It's always like Zacian to Xerneas. Such a good matchup in theory, right? But the way the Xerneas teams are built and the way the Xerneas teams function, they function with so much stuff to beat Zacian, right? Because it's such a bad matchup for the restricted. Most of their non-restricted are there to deal with Zacian. So losing pieces early, if Xerneas gets set up, is not good, right? So I needed Incineroar or an Incineroar that was able to take a good chunk of Xerneas attacks, and this does exactly that for me. And to be honest, it's also really nice versus Calyrex, so something needs to take those attacks. Anyways, Urjifu coming in right here with the Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, Detect. Very common Mystic Water. Super, super bulky. I think you guys are starting to get the theme of the team here. Super bulky. Nothing will die. Yeah, no, basically just super bulky. I believe Kunal was the first one to come up with the bulky Urjifu Mystic Water stuff. I kind of played around with that spread. Made it a little bit slower just to have a little bit more general bulk. It's a little bit more favorable for the Grassy Glide rolls. And yeah, I guess the extra HP is never a bad thing to have. Like I said, general bulk. But basically it was for the Grassy Glide rolls. And when I had this team originally, I was Woodhammer on Rillaboom, and I didn't actually have Politoed. I'll get into that a little later. But that means I had no Icy Wind and no Drum Beating. Meaning I couldn't really slow things down. Only Thunder Wave was my way to slow things down, right? So as long as I was faster than certain things after they were -2, I was good with that. And I was perfectly fine, right? So what I'm trying to say here is basically if you want to upgrade, to change this Urjifu, I highly recommend it. I would recommend either a Choice Scarf if you want to take inspiration from Mike D'Angelo's team. That's a really good team report, by the way. They similar concept with a Pelipper, though. That team report's actually up on Addy's channel. I'll leave a link to that. It'll pop up on the screen somewhere around now. Actually, I'm going to write that down, the timestamp down. 9-minute mark. Okay, there we go. Okay, see, now I'm not going to forget to do that. Let's be real, I'm still going to forget to do that. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is the Scarf Urjifu is really, really nice, especially because you can set Rain, right? If they don't have speed control under Calyrex, Rain, Urjifu in Rain into Calyrex just takes it right out with that Surging Strikes, right? It's such a nice tech to have. It also puts on a lot of pressure against things that are normally faster than it, right? Like, you've got the Landorus that's normally faster than it that you can kill. Maybe the Scarf Entei that you can now pick off with your Urjifu, right? It definitely benefits. I think Scarf Urjifu, or in this case, just a little bit faster. Probably faster to a spot where you outpace Calyrex when the Calyrex is at -1 speed. Because like I said, we have things on this team now like Icy Wind and Drum Beating. It is a little unfortunate when you Drum Beating them and then you have Urjifu in the back and you're still not faster and you lose the game anyways. But it is what it is, and it's just a rough matchup, but that is definitely one thing I would be changing moving forward if I were to continue with this team. Let's move on to Rillaboom now. Nothing too crazy on to Rillaboom. Like I said, Grassy Glide, Drum Beating, U-Turn, Fake Out, AV. It's just another thing that can take Calyrex attacks, and Drum Beating is super clutch. Right, I'll talk a little bit about the Calyrex matchup now. It's basically, you've got two kind of Calyrex teams, right? You've got the position-based ones similar to the Zacian teams, right? That opt to use the Incineroar, Urjifu, Rillaboom, Calyrex core, right? And often that's what happens in that matchup when you play them, right? So having the Drum Beating, being able to slow that down without them being able to really slow your Zacian down or speed up their Calyrex, once they get that Cali to -1, Zacian can come in and clean it up. Right, that's the concept there. And if they're the crazy hyper offense stuff with the Mienshao, the Whimsicott, the Cali, right there at that point you want to start taking damage knockouts. But you also need to be able to not die. And Incineroar and this Rillaboom do a very good job of not dying to Calyrex. Knockoff was something I had tested before Drum Beating. I didn't like it because at 36 attack Adamant, if I got down to -1, Knockoff wasn't killing Cali anyways, and Drum Beating would end up being more beneficial. Yes, Knockoff probably puts it in range of Grassy Glide, but so does the Drum Beating Grassy Glide too. So it's not too bad. Obviously, if I'm -1, I don't think it does. But once I get the speed down, I'm very content. Also, Urshifu lives 1 Astral Barrage anyways, so am I really too concerned about it? Not really. It's don't get me wrong, Calyrex, roughest matchup. I'll get into that when I talk about matchups later. But I didn't really see it. I think Drum Beating was more useful, right? Especially because there's matchups where you can't really bring Zapdos and you want to slow things down still. Drum Beating was good, right? It gave me a way to hit Kyogre if they had Serena on the field. It was just the right call on the Zacian team. Where do we go from here? I say we go to Zapdos next. We'll save Politoed for the end, as I initially mentioned. Zapdos, this is 100% Nick's spread, or my friend Nick's spread. Nothing crazy here. I don't actually know exactly what it does. Don't quote me on anything I say here. I'm just stretching if I make any sort of statement. But honestly, really bulky spread. Really good Zapdos here. At the time that I built this team initially, the whole play rough, the dual stab Zacian didn't exist. Right? It was substitute Sacred Sword, Behemoth Blade, substitute Close Combat, Behemoth Blade, protect, Swords Dance, right? They didn't really run play rough too often, right? So what you could get away with doing is just playing to the Zapdos Zacian endgame, and you could just roost back up. They would hit you down. They'd get static. You'd be faster. You'd roost back up. They'd lose health to Rocky Helmet. You could Thunderbolt to break the sub. It was really, 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 really nice. At 76 special attack, the Thunderbolt goes, this one you can quote me on because this one I know. At 76 special attack, the Thunderbolt goes into the Urshifu water. The common bulky Mystic Water one, the Kunal spread that I mentioned earlier, goes into that and only allows Urshifu to get 1 Surging Strikes off into the Rocky Helmet before it dies to the Rocky Helmet. So that's kind of the concept of there. It also is a nice spot to hit. So super bulky. Zapdos, really, really, really nice to deal with the endgame of the Ogre games, right? Like a lot of times you lose the endgame in Ogre because the Serena's there and I can't get rid of the Serena, or I can't get rid of the Amoonguss, right? Or I can't get rid of the Torn and my Rillaboom can't do what it's supposed to do. Zapdos does a phenomenal job at exactly that, getting rid of those pesky things that deal with my Rillaboom in that matchup, and just lets my Rillaboom have a nice and easy time. And that's exactly what you want from this Zapdos here. And it does very good versus Zacian too. If you're playing Zacian and you're not bringing Zapdos when you're using this team, you better be rethinking, or you better have a really good reason not to bring Zapdos. Because Thunderwave is phenomenal. Let's be real. Everybody says they use Thunderwave for speed control. We use Thunderwave as a win condition, okay? We're going to be honest here. It's in the game, I'm going to use it. It's great for speed control, don't get me wrong. It's phenomenal, right? Slowing down opposing Zacian so mine is faster and can kill it. Slowing down things like Kyogre if I ever needed to. I don't do it too often on Kyogre. But anything that I can slow down with Thunderwave, I'm going to slow down with Thunderwave, right? It lets me be faster, which is huge when Zacian is potentially at like +2, +3 even, right? Or it just you get that nice little bit of paralysis, nice little luck going in your favor, right? It's a game of odds, right? And you're managing your odds. If you get Thunderwave off, your odds to win a game are automatically going up, right? Because there's always that chance of them just getting fully paralyzed. So it definitely is a super nice secondary effect with that option to have that full para happen, right? But primarily speed control, but let's be real. I'm not going to hide the fact that it's super nice to get some paras once in a while. Over to Politoed. And I'm pretty sure this is why everybody's here. Everybody wants to see this little frog do work. And I'm going to be completely honest, it does not do too much work. It does work, don't get me wrong. It just doesn't come every time. It doesn't come very often. It's not one of those things like, yes, Politoed, I'm bringing Politoed this game. And I should probably bring it more. It's just that Zacian, Instant, Urshifu, Zapdos, Rillaboom covers so much of the meta. It is absolutely disgusting, and Politoed doesn't really get a lot of time to shine. However, when it comes, it puts in a lot of work. So, like I said, I'm opting for Scald, Icy Wind, Perish Song, Protect. It does a very nice job versus Entei stuffs, right? Because a lot of times the Entei will be able to just Sacred Fire Urshifu, and rather than have me risking that, having to stay in there, hope I don't get burned, I can have Politoed as that option instead, do 90% with a Scald, or slow it down for my Zacian to click +1 Behemoth Blade into it, because Entei doesn't appreciate that either. So, super clutch for the Entei at the time of the building team, which is still, Entei's still fairly relevant, not as much so as it was, but it is still relevant. By the way, and like I said earlier, that this Politoed was not a Politoed. It was an Amoonguss. It was a Landorus at one point. I believe it was a Dragapult at one point as well. Basically what I'm saying is I shuffled this slot so much and I settled on Politoed. Why did I settle on Politoed? Main reason, Kyogre, Groudon. Ask me how many Groudons I played in a tournament setting with this team. And the answer is going to be 0. 0 Groudons I played. Politoed scared them all away. Okay? Politoed scared every single one of them. But it would have been nice, right? The theory with Groudon here is that I can keep Rain, right? Obviously, force them to go for P-Blades, right? 85%, force them to go for that. Don't let them just start clicking Heat Crash into everything. Also, it's super nice because Urshifu's on the field. You can pivot in Politoed, get rid of the Sun, Surging Strikes, bye-bye Groudon. Right? Super clutch right there. Nice and bulky set. I'm pretty sure this is just a standard set off of Pikalytics. I'm going to be honest. I'm pretty sure I just stole this set from Pikalytics. But, hey, normally I like to pride myself in sets, but I took this from Pikalytics. I'm like, okay, let's see if I can change this a little bit. And honestly, everything just checked out. So, does a good chunk of stuff. And, pretty much there. The Perish Song endgame, this is kind of similar to the Series 8 team when I had the Lapras and the Zacian. You know, you'd go for the G-Max stuff, you kill a few things, and then Lapras clicks Perish Song and you win the game. Same concept. Obviously, I'm not getting screens up with this, so it's a little bit kind of like a Lapras Zacian at home, but like, it still kind of works, okay? It still works, and I do click Perish Song often, and like I said earlier, for things that do want to set up with like iron defenses, right? If I can get Politoed onto the field the turn they're trying to set up, they don't really gain anything from it, right? Obviously, Politoed's not going to be taking +6 body press too often, right? But if I can position myself to Politoed when I know they're trying to set up and I know that's the end game they're playing for, I can get it Politoed on the field earlier. That way they're setting up and I can kind of force them to switch. I either say, go ahead and switch or you die. It's also really nice on things like the Calm Mind Kyogre teams that are picking up as well. Because if you're going to click Calm Mind, I'm going to click Perish Song, right? You can only click Calm Mind so many times, right? Like I stop your setup. The moment I perish, you're not going to click Calm Mind again because you need to do damage before you have to switch out, right? Or you're not going to click Iron Defense again. You're going to have to switch out. And the moment I'm forcing switches, I can call those switches, right? Like there's safe plays. You can find safe plays when I go, okay, you're either going to switch out or you're going to stay in an attack. If you switch out, I can afford to call the switch because if you're not going to switch out, you're dead that turn anyways. As long as I'm in a spot where I'm not going to die in return, I can afford to call a lot of switches most of the time. So Politoed definitely comes in handy, guys. Super clutch. I don't think I'd change too much about it. I think it's super solid. Helping Hand was an initial concept. Yes, I had a Melodic here at one point because I was like, Melodic, they're not going to come intimidate my Zacian if I have a Melodic. Melodic actually gets Helping Hand. I don't know what hands it uses to clap, but besides the point, Melodic does get Helping Hand. Politoed also gets Helping Hand, guys. That is an option if you wanted to opt for it instead of the Perish Song. I don't think it's necessary in this format. I think Zacian with SD takes care of that quite enough. But I guess maybe Helping Hand could be seen if you wanted to run like something like Choice Scarf Urshifu. I think that would pack such a punch, right? Politoed into Rainbow Scarf Urshifu, clap. You basically kill the format, right? Like it could be an option if you wanted to switch to the Urshifu, to Scarf Urshifu as I mentioned earlier. But for right now, I stuck with Perish Song. I like playing a slower game. I like pivoting around a lot, right? So having Perish Song and being able to just pivot and calling, and it just makes an easier time calling my opponent's pivots, right? Especially early game. Don't get me wrong, I don't recommend Perish Songing early game. But you know those games that you can just kind of tell and you get to like turn 10, turn 11, and you can just kind of tell no one's really taking Pokemon? This is where this comes in handy, right? Because you can perish before, well, they still have Pokemon on the field. Yeah, you have to switch, right? But chances are you were pivoting around anyways, right? If you can maybe force a switch early, it definitely helps because you can take advantage of that, right? And then you always have the opportunity to kind of just lead Zacian Urjifu or Zacian Rillaboom, take a few knockouts and bring in Politoed and click Perish Song, right? I guess we can get into some matchups now, guys. That's basically the gist of the team. Nothing too crazy. It's honestly a pretty standard Zacian team, but with Zapdos and Politoed, like, the synergy is there. It was a little bit of an interesting touch, I thought. So everybody wanted to see it, right? Because I used it in World Cup. Someone saw it and they're like, yo, that's a cool team. I want the Politoed, right? So, like, here's the team, guys, just for everybody that was asking. Here's the team. I'm going to go back over here to the pace because I think it's a little bit nicer to look at than the showdown view. But either way, we're going to talk about matchups right now. I'm going to just kind of go through the big four, maybe throw the Groudon matchup in there. A lot of time with matchups, guys, I'm not going to be the guy to tell you this is how you play the matchup. You got to do this, 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 and this, right? I'm not cookie cutter like that. I don't like being cookie cutter like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trashing flowcharting. Flowcharting is super important, and you need to know and you need to have your concept of if they do this, this is what I should be doing, right? I just like keeping things a little more open. So a lot of these might seem kind of like half thought out, but it's more so because of the fact that I don't want to think too much into it because so many things change, right? Like, yeah, I'm going to bring Urjifu Politoed versus Groudon, but I'm not bringing Urjifu Politoed versus Groudon in 5 grass types, right? Or Groudon in 3 grass types even. I'm probably not going to bring both of them. I have to pick one, right? I'd probably bring something like Politoed Zapdos instead, right? So I don't want to have my flowchart completely written out. So more along the lines here, we're just going to go with general concepts and things that you can do in those matchups, more so than this is what you need to do. But anyways, I'll stop rambling now, I promise. But basically, the Zacian matchup, you're bringing Zapdos Incineroar. And I know I said I wasn't going to say that, but you're bringing Zapdos Incineroar. There is unique times you can make a case for not bringing Zapdos or not bringing Incineroar. Incineroar is one of the things you should be bringing 9 times out of 10 to that matchup. Zapdos, you should be bringing 9.5 times out of 10 to that matchup, right? The one time you don't bring Incineroar is if they have, like, Defiant stuff, or really Zacian is the only thing you're hitting, and they have, like, the Urshifu, the Landorus, right? If they have a lot of anti-Incineroar on their Zacian team, you can kind of make a case for without it. But oftentimes, you're bringing Incineroar, Zapdos, Rillaboom, Zacian, some order of those 4, right? Game 1, I would be going Incineroar, Zapdos, or Rillaboom, Zapdos, and then adapting to their game style. And in Game 2 and Game 3, you just kind of know what, kind of figure out their play style, and then you could probably get away with leading Zacian as well, right? Because I said it before, if they're not leading Zacian and if they're not leading Intimidate, you can get Zacian in there, get the SD up. I'm sorry, there's not much you can really do, right? Get that SD up, and now you're in a lot of trouble. So, Zacian, that covers the Zacian. Kyogre, this is where Politoed shines, guys. A lot. This is the most common matchup where Politoed will shine. If you're looking at the Santino team with the Scarf Ogre and the Weavile there from the Invitational, Politoed Zacian is the phenomenal lead into that because oftentimes they're going to lead Torn and they're going to click Tailwind, right? What you can do is you can Icy Wind and Play Rough. Kyogre goes down to about 20%, if not taking more damage from that because of the Icy Wind chip as well. Right, you get the Icy Wind, and then the following turn, since Santino's Tornadus was actually really, really slow, Zacian, even though we're in Tailwind, because the Torn was at -1 speed from the Icy Wind, Zacian will outpace it, and you can get the kill there, and then you proceed with Rillaboom and Zapdos in the back. And a lot of the time, that is the common matchup for most Ogre teams. It's the common matchup for most Ogre teams, except for those Trick Room Ogre teams that have been popping up, right? The Torn Ogre, though, you're going Politoed, Zacian, Rillaboom, Zapdos, and it gives you a solid back if you need to switch into something, and it gives you enough pressure up front to put some pressure onto Kyogre teams. The Trick Room Kyogre teams, you're more often going to want to play this one a little bit slower, but you also still want pressure. So I would opt for like Zapdos Zacian with Politoed Rillaboom in the back, right? Because you know they're going to try to Trick Room, right? So what you want to do is you just want to put some pressure on, maybe break the disguise onto Mimikyu, maybe get some chip damage onto Kyogre, get some Hurricanes off if they lead Kyogre. Even Blind Hurricane is never really bad with Zapdos, right? Like, there's times when you can just click Hurricane, right? You can always switch in your Politoed to set the rain, which is something I really like. Because I can mess with their head, right? Like, they want to get rain up when they want rain up. If I put rain on the field a little earlier before Kyogre comes in, that's one less turn that I have to deal with Kyogre and rain, which is super, super handy at times. So that's kind of the Kyogre stuff there. And notice I didn't say Urshifu. Urshifu does not come to a lot, but it does help. Urshifu comes a lot more versus non-big form matchups. You can make a case for it against Zacian. Like if you're dropping Incineroar in those Zacian matchups when they have the Urjifu, they have the Landers, that's when you bring your Urjifu, right? But like it often comes to teams that aren't as well composed, as like the standard meta teams, and obviously you can exploit the Urjifu there. I think it would come a whole lot more if it was either Choice Scarfed or, like I said before, if it was faster. I could capitalize off the Icy Winds or the Drum Beatings a whole lot more, and it would probably result in bringing it more. But Calyrex, you want Urshifu here. You don't want Politoed or Zapdos. You can maybe make a case for Zapdos. I've tried it multiple times. It's never worked for me. If you can figure out a way to beat Calyrex by bringing either Zapdos or Politoed, please let me know, because I can't figure it out, and I've been trying to. But I think the common concept here versus Calyrex is you're bringing Incineroar, Rillaboom, Urshifu, Zacian, not in that order. The correct order, I don't know. It kind of changes based on the Calyrex team, right? If you have one of those slower, controlled Zacian teams, right, with like the Incin, the Urshifu, the Rillaboom core of their own, right, you want to be playing that a little bit slower, right? But you also want to be leading Zacian into that. They don't have the same firepower as all the other Calyrex teams do, so you can get away with leading Zacian and Rillaboom perhaps, right? If they lead something like their Urshifu, right? They don't have a lot of switch-ins to Zacian, those Calyrex teams, right? So if you can either slow them down with drum beating, that's gonna help. If you just get the damage trade with maybe you say, okay, just fire off your attacks and I'm gonna fire off mine, right? I don't recommend getting into damage wars with Calyrex. Chances are you're gonna lose that game. But chances are you're going to lose the Calyrex game anyways. The Calyrex is by far the weakest matchup with this team. If you're getting one of those more hyper offensive Calyrex teams, right, that want to set that tail and that have that Mienshao, right, you probably want to be leading Urshifu. The idea there against the hyper offense Cali is you want to chip things into range of Aqua Jet and Grassy Glide. And the moment you do that, you deal with Cali, Zacian comes in and normally cleans up the rest of that hyper offense stuff, right? Get rid of the Cali. That's your goal. If you're gonna give you the Cali, take the Cali. If they're gonna play more conservative with the Cali, this team is built to play conservative, right? This team is built to position. So position. If they're gonna position, you position. If they're gonna go hyper offense, chip it down, save your key pieces, and get into a spot where it's gonna be dying to a Grassy Glide to let you be able to position again. It's not an easy matchup. I know I just said it like it was an easy thing to do. I got eliminated in top 16 by a Calyrex, guys. It's not easy. Calyrex into Zacian is probably one of the best matchups you can get as a Calyrex player. Obviously not the best, but it's definitely favorable, right? Considering there's going to be Zacians all over the place. If you're running Calyrex, this is what you want to see. Xerneas now is the next one here. Xerneas here is tricky because in theory, you could bring all 6 mods. Right? Very, very steadily bringing all 6 mons, right? You have Zapdos that can Thunder Wave it if it wants to get greedy. You have Politoed, you can play to the Perish. You can click Perish Song. As I said before with the body press thing, you can do the same thing with Geomancy. You're going to set up Geomancy, okay, I'm going to click Perish. Right? It just makes things a little bit more annoying. I don't think that is the consistent way to play the Xerneas matchup. I think having something like Instant, Urshifu, Rillaboom, and Zacian, that's the core you want in that matchup. I would personally be leading Rillaboom, Zacian, Instant, Urshifu in the back, because they're not going to be leading Xerneas into Zacian. No one ever does, but at the same time, the Xerneas player, I myself am a Xerneas player, right? Right? No one leads Xerneas into Zacian, but I know that, so I know they're probably not leading Zacian. They're going to save Zacian in the back, which is why I sometimes like to lead Zacian, because that normally prevents them from ever leading Xerneas, right? Like game 1, I'll lead Zacian, right? What are the chances you're bringing Xerneas in the lead next game? Very slow, right? And that helps this team out a lot. The moment I have to position to stop their positioning, this team runs into trouble. But the moment I can position just to aid my positioning is a whole lot easier. So much easier. Also, by the way, Swords Dance, Play Rough, stealing their Fairy Aura boost is very, very nice. Just going to point that out. But, yeah, I think I've rambled enough. Oh, I didn't talk about Groudon. I got to talk about Groudon. That's what Politoed's for. Politoed is, it's for the Groudon, right? Like, obviously I said I'm not going to bring it versus, like, the three grass types plus Groudon, although I'll probably drop Urjifu at that point, so I could have Hurricanes with Zapdos. But It's basically find a way to get Urjifu on the field and then have Politoed to keep the rain. It's a weather war. That's all it is, right? Every time I have a matchup where I say I just need Groudon to miss the P-Blades, I lose that matchup. So I've stopped relying on that because you shouldn't be. That should not be your matchup. Your matchup in the Groudon should not be I need you to miss a P-Blades, right? At least this way I have a way to kill it. I have numerous ways to kill it actually. I can go Urshifu, get the rain up, kill it with that. I can go Urshifu, I have Drum Beating, I have Grassy Glide, I can slow it down. I'm actually not sure on this calc, but I'm pretty sure Drum Beating into a Flare Blitz from Incineroar, if that's in the sun, actually does a good chunk as well. Probably doesn't pick it up, but it should be doing a good chunk of damage. Like I said, I didn't play Groudon, so do I know my damage calcs here? Not really. Like I said, my common game plan though would be leading Urshifu, probably leading like Urshifu Zacian unless they have like a lot of something that can break that, with Politoed and then either Incineroar or Rillaboom in the back. If I need Intimidate, I'll bring in Incineroar. If I think I need the priority and maybe the Regieleki switch in, Rillaboom. Oh, that's one thing I didn't mention. If they have a Regieleki, you best be bringing Rillaboom. It is in your best intention to bring Rillaboom, because I'm pretty sure you can tell from the team that this is not a Regieleki favorite. This is not something that just eats on Regielekis. This is something Regieleki really wants to be coming to, which honestly is nice, because a lot of the times Regieleki is one of those Pokemon that you bring in matchups you need speed control in, and they don't really want to be bringing a Lecky versus this because they don't really need speed control. But if you can force them to bring their Alecki when they don't necessarily want to, because it's such a good mon here, you can kind of take advantage of that by having your Rillaboom, by having your Urshifu, right? Just having to fake out Surging Strikes into that slot, it can dictate a lot of that game, right? It can dictate a lot of switches. You know, okay, they can't really sacrifice Alecki because they know they want it for the end game, so you know they're going to switch out. So I'm just going to target the other slot, right? It just forces things. If it forces Alecki in, it's not amazing for you because Alecki, and as you can tell, I don't have the best Alecki matchup. But it's definitely winnable. Zacian hits it very, very hard. If you see a Lecky, try to chip it as soon as possible, right? Because if you chip it down either with a Drum Beating, a Glide, or fake out Surging Strikes into it, even a Behemoth Blade into it is perfectly fine. Because all you want to do is put it into Jet range or Glide range, right? You want to get it into range where it's going to die to that priority move. And it's not hard to do against a Lecky, right? In fact, I've even Thunderbolted Regieleki before with my Zapdos, just because I wanted to break the sash, and generally that picks up with the Thunderbolt Glide. If it's a bulkier variant, which they do tend to run on, some of the Scarf ones have a little bit more bulk, and some of the Specs ones as well have bulk, but if it's that in general sash variant, Thunderbolt Grassy Glide is normally pretty clean at picking that thing up, which is very, very nice. Right, like I said, basically if you got a Lecky, you want to chip it down, get it into priority range, do what you need to do to get it down. Even if you mean throat chopping it with Incineroar. Right, you want to get it down. The moment it's low and you have Urshifu and Rillaboom in the back, they can't do anything versus it. They can't do anything with it. Right, but I think I've talked apparently for 33 minutes about this team, which I didn't know I could do. But yeah, that's going to be it for this, guys. I do apologize for rambling on, but if you guys do want to see more team building and more kind of thought process videos from me, please let me know. I'd love to get some new content, right? I'm trying to come back to YouTube. I'm obviously going to stick with like the crazy climbing and the laddering videos, but like there's always something to be said for team building. It's just really different for me because like when I team build, right, like I don't trust my teams right away. Like I trust my team building, but I don't trust my teams right away. Like I don't say like, I don't put 6 mons in the builder and go, yep, this is the team, right? It's always like you put 6 mons, you're like, okay, this is weak here, it's strong here, so we keep these 4, drop this, pick up this now, right? Like it's a lot of editing, right, until you have that final version, right? And even this, like I said, even this, I've used this team in World Cup for Team Canada, right? If you guys are interested in that, I can link some of those videos as well, but they're up on the channel. I'm sure you guys have seen them. If not, feel free to go check them out. But I've used this team for Team Canada, and I've used it in tournaments, and I'm still noticing as I've gone through this team building with you that, hey, Urshifu probably needs to be changed, right? Like there's always something to look at, right? It's one of those things. This is a team that I actually didn't go back and look at too much. The only thing I went back and changed was the Zacian spread. I had it at a little bit slower, but I did creep it up a little more so I could get Zacian outspeeding Regieleki when it was at -1. That was the only thing I changed there, really, that went back to fix the synergy between the 6, right? But a lot of the times you should be considering that, right? I don't know. Basically, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I will stop rambling on. If you guys do enjoy the content, feel free to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more. With that, I'm going to get out of here, and I will catch you guys in the next video.